Hello, we're talking today about internal rates of return, or IRR. IRR is essentially the yield that you will achieve after you buy a property, investment property. You put a certain amount down, you enjoy net operating income over a time period, typically 10 years, and then you sell the property based on that future income in, let's say, the 10th year. Holding periods can be as short as 5 years, 7 years. Typically, we calculate an internal rate of return, or institutional commercial real estate calculates them based on a 10-year term. A lot of times, mortgage debt will amortize over 20, 25, 30 years, but the term of the loan might be fixed for 10 years and due in 10 years. So an internal rate of return would be calculated over typically a 10-year period of time. IRR looks at the cash flows that are coming in every single year. So we set up essentially a table that shows our outflows, or the down payment, in the first year. And then every other year we show the cash flows that we received. And that would be our potential gross income minus our vacancy, which gives us our effective gross income, or EGI. Then we subtract out any expenses. For an apartment building, we might have a variety of expenses. If it's a retail or office building, the leases might be on a triple net basis, so there's very few expenses. And then that gives us our NOI, or our net operating income. We then take those cash flows. We look at all that income that we're achieving over multiple years, and typically income is growing over those years. We would put in some assumptions of a growth rate, and that growth rate could be as little as 1 or 2%. Maybe it's 3, 4, 5%. Maybe you know what the growth is on the leases. You have steps in 5 years, in 3 years, and so you can manually put in what those increases are going to be. So after we put in all those increases, we know what the net income is going to be in years 1, 2, 3, all the way out to year 10. We then select a cap rate in the future based on year 11's income, because that's when we're selling the property. We look at what the anticipated cash flow is going to be in the 11th year, because that's what the buyer is going to anticipate their cash flow to be. We take a cap rate, and I typically choose a cap rate 50 basis points or 0.5% higher than the cap rate that I'm buying the property at, or the current cap rate. So, for example, if I'm buying a property at a 6 cap, I'm probably going to use a 6.5 cap in year 10 and cap the year 11 income. That gives me a reversionary value, or a value in year 10 when I sell the property. I would take off any sales costs, and after I take off sales costs, I subtract out what the mortgage will be in the when I sell the property in year 10, and then I do a calculation. It's effectively a net present value calculation. Excel does this very easily, where there's an IRR calculation, and we get a yield. And that yield is not a 1-year yield. It's assuming multiple years, or a 10-year hold, buying the property and selling the property. And it's really the yield that I will achieve every single year, assuming all of my assumptions, and over the full 10 years. Internal rates of return can be 8, 9, 10%, 12%. Typically, I see IRRs in the low teens to mid-teens. So a 14, 15, 16% IRR is typical. If you're doing a development or refinancing a property, and you're looking at an internal rate of return, they might be higher. So again, it all depends.